November 13th, 1996. Oregon City, Oregon. The rain fell in cold, relentless sheets that Wednesday morning, drumming against the pavement of Lincoln Street like 1,000 tiny fists. It was the kind of November rain that turned the Pacific Northwest into a watercolor painting. Blurred edges, muted colors, everything running together in shades of gray and green. The kind of rain that made people pull their collars tight and hurry along, eyes down, minds focused on getting somewhere dry. Ashley Pond stood at the kitchen window of her small apartment, watching the water stream down the glass. She was 12 years old, small for her age, with sandy blonde hair that fell just past her shoulders and eyes that seemed older than they should be. She wore a purple raincoat, her favorite, and clutched her backpack with both hands, mentally preparing herself for the walk to the bus stop. "You got your lunch?" her mother called from the bedroom, her voice still thick with sleep. "Yeah, Mom," Ashley replied, though she hadn't checked. Her stomach was tight with anxiety, the way it always was lately. School had become complicated. Friendships shifting like sand, teachers who didn't understand, and that uncomfortable feeling of being watched that she couldn't quite shake. The apartment was small, cramped even, part of a low-income complex on the edge of Oregon City, where most families were just scraping by. The walls were thin enough that Ashley could hear the couple next door arguing, could hear the baby upstairs crying at night. But it was home, and her mother worked 2 jobs to keep it that way. Ashley glanced at the clock on the microwave. 7:18 a.m. The bus came at 7:45, and the stop was a 15-minute walk away. She needed to leave now. "I'm going," she announced, slinging her backpack over one shoulder. Her mother emerged from the bedroom, still in her waitress uniform from the night shift. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her face carried the weight of too many worries. "You want me to drive you? It's really coming down out there." "It's fine, Mom. You need to sleep." Her mother hesitated, that maternal instinct clearly battling with exhaustion. "Okay, baby, but you be careful. And call me when you get to school, all right?" Ashley nodded, though they both knew she probably wouldn't call. The school phone was always tied up, and by the time she got there, her mother would be asleep anyway. She stepped out into the rain, pulling her hood up as the cold immediately found its way through her jacket. The complex parking lot was mostly empty at this hour, people either already at work or still sleeping. Her sneakers splashed through puddles as she made her way toward the street, the sound of the rain drowning out almost everything else. Lincoln Street stretched before her, lined with modest homes and apartments, most with cars parked out front and bikes lying in yards. She knew this route by heart, had walked it hundreds of times. Past the Martinez house with the barking dogs, past the empty lot where kids sometimes played basketball, past Miranda Gaddis's apartment complex, identical to her own. Miranda. Ashley felt a pang of something complicated when she thought about her neighbor and former best friend. They'd been inseparable once back in elementary school, but things had gotten weird lately. Awkward. They still said hi, still hung out sometimes, but there was a distance now that neither of them seemed to know how to bridge. As Ashley walked, she became aware of a car moving slowly behind her. Oregon City was a small town, about 25 Zouveran people, and most folks knew each other at least by sight. But this early morning traffic was unusual. She glanced back briefly, saw a dark sedan with its headlights cutting through the rain, but couldn't make out the driver through the weather. The car kept pace with her for half a block before suddenly accelerating and turning down a side street. Ashley felt her shoulders relax slightly. She was being paranoid. That's what her mother always said, that she worried too much. The bus stop was just ahead now, a covered bench at the corner of Lincoln and Malala Avenue. Usually there were other kids waiting. Jenny from her math class, the Thompson twins, sometimes that quiet boy who never talked to anyone. But this morning, the rain must have convinced parents to drive their children. The bench sat empty, rain pooling on the concrete around it. Ashley checked her watch. 7:33 a.m. 12 minutes until the bus. She could wait under the shelter, but something made her hesitate. That feeling again, the one she couldn't name, like being watched, like something was off in a way she couldn't articulate. She heard an engine behind her again. The same dark sedan. She couldn't be sure. The rain distorted everything, made it hard to see clearly. The car pulled up to the curb about 20 feet away, and Ashley felt her heart rate pick up. The driver's side window rolled down partially. "Hey, sweetie," a man's voice called out. "Your mom sent me to pick you up. Said it's too nasty to wait for the bus." Ashley froze. She knew this voice. Ward Weaver lived in her complex, just a few buildings over. He was friendly with her mom, always offering to help with things, fixing leaky faucets, carrying groceries. He had a daughter around Ashley's age at a different school, but something felt wrong. "My mom didn't say anything," Ashley called back, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. "Just called me 5 minutes ago," Ward replied, his voice warm and reassuring. "Said she felt bad about sending you out in this weather. Come on, I'll have you at school in 10 minutes." The rain continued its relentless assault. Ashley was already soaked through, her feet cold and wet inside her sneakers. The bus stop offered minimal shelter, and the thought of getting out of the rain was tempting. But her mother had taught her the rules. Never get in a car with someone unless she'd specifically been told. Never go anywhere without telling someone first. Trust your instincts. "I think I'll just wait for the bus," Ashley said, taking a small step backward. Ward's expression, what she could see of it through the rain and the partially rolled window, didn't change. "Ashley, come on. Your mom's going to be upset if she finds out you got soaked waiting out here when I offered you a ride." The fact that he knew her name shouldn't have been surprising. They lived in the same complex, but it sent a chill down her spine anyway. Ashley glanced around, hoping to see another person, another car, anything. But Lincoln Street was empty, the rain creating a gray curtain that isolated her from the rest of the world. "I'm fine," she said more firmly. "Thanks anyway." For just a moment, she saw something flicker across Ward's face. Annoyance? Anger? But it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. He nodded slowly. "All right, kiddo. You stay dry." The window rolled up, and the sedan pulled away from the curb, its taillights disappearing into the rain. Ashley released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She hurried to the bus stop shelter, her heart still pounding. Why had that felt so wrong? Ward had never been anything but nice to her and her mother. Maybe she was just being paranoid like her mom said. But as she sat on the wet bench, watching the rain and waiting for the bus that would arrive in 8 minutes, Ashley couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, that she'd just avoided something terrible. She couldn't have known how right she was. And she couldn't have known that in exactly 63 days, her best friend Miranda Gaddis would face the exact same choice and make a different decision. The bus's headlights appeared through the rain at 7:44 a.m. right on schedule. Ashley climbed aboard, showed her pass to the driver, and found a seat near the back. As the bus pulled away from the stop, she looked out the window at the empty street, at the rain that seemed like it would never stop, and felt an inexplicable urge to remember everything about this morning. The purple raincoat, the cold feet, the dark sedan, the voice calling from the window. Remember it all, because someday, someone might need to know. January 8th, 1997, Oregon City, Oregon. Miranda Gaddis woke to the sound of her alarm clock buzzing angrily on her nightstand. She slapped at it blindly, her hand finally connecting with the off button, and lay in the darkness for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds of her apartment building coming to life. Footsteps above, a door slamming down the hall, the distant hum of traffic on Malala Avenue. It was Wednesday, and Wednesdays meant early morning choir practice at school. She needed to catch the 7:45 bus, same as always, same as Ashley used to. Ashley. Miranda rolled onto her side, staring at the wall where a photo of the two of them still hung, taken at the Oregon State Fair the previous summer. Both girls grinning at the camera with cotton candy in their hands. That had been before everything got weird between them, before the distance that neither of them knew how to close. And now Ashley was gone. Miranda's mother said Ashley had probably run away. that 12-year-old girls did that sometimes when things got tough at home. The police seemed to think so too, at least at first. But as November turned to December and then to January with no sign of Ashley Pond, the official statements had changed. Missing person. Ongoing investigation. Anyone with information, please come forward. The entire town was papered with Ashley's face. Every telephone pole, every grocery store bulletin board, every gas station window. That school photo from last year where Ashley's smile looked forced and her eyes seemed sad. Miranda had seen it so many times she could close her eyes and see it perfectly. The purple shirt Ashley had worn, the way her blonde hair fell across her shoulders, the silver necklace with the heart pendant. Miranda threw off her covers and padded to the bathroom, turning on the shower and waiting for the water to warm up. Her mother was already gone to her shift at the nursing home, double shifts most days trying to make ends meet. Her older brother was still asleep. He didn't have class until afternoon. As she showered, Miranda thought about the last real conversation she'd had with Ashley. It had been maybe 3 weeks before Ashley disappeared, at the bus stop on a rainy morning. They'd stood under the shelter together, not quite looking at each other, the awkwardness thick between them. "How's your mom?" Miranda had asked, just to fill the silence. "Okay, I guess," Ashley had replied. "Working a lot." "Yeah, mine too." More silence, the rain drumming on the shelter roof. "Miranda," Ashley had said suddenly, "do you ever feel like someone's watching you?" The question had been so unexpected that Miranda didn't know how to respond. "What do you mean?" Ashley had opened her mouth to answer, but then the bus had appeared around the corner, and whatever she'd been about to say was lost. They'd ridden to school in silence, sitting in different rows, and that was the last real conversation they'd had. Now Miranda wondered what Ashley had meant. Had she felt unsafe? Had she been planning to run away? Or had something else been happening? Something darker that no one had seen. Miranda dried off and got dressed. Jeans, a green sweater her grandmother had sent for Christmas, her worn sneakers that were getting too small but would have to last until her next birthday. She grabbed a Pop-Tart from the kitchen, stuffed her homework into her backpack, and checked the time. 7:28 a.m., plenty of time to make the bus. The morning was cold but clear, the rain having finally stopped after 3 solid days. Oregon City looked clean and fresh in the winter light, the streets still wet but the sky beginning to show patches of blue between the clouds. Miranda walked the familiar route to the bus stop, passing houses where families were just starting their days. Lights coming on in kitchens, garage doors opening, the smell of coffee and bacon drifting through screen doors. She thought about taking a different route or asking her brother to drive her, but that felt like giving in to fear. Ashley had disappeared from this exact walk, and now everyone treated these streets like they were dangerous. But it was morning, there were people around, and Miranda refused to live her life scared of shadows. The bus stop came into view, that same covered bench where Ashley had waited alone on November 13th, where she'd been seen for the last time according to witnesses, where she'd simply vanished into thin air. Miranda was early. The bus wouldn't arrive for another 12 minutes. She sat on the bench, pulling her jacket tighter against the chill, and watched the street. A few cars passed by, people heading to work, a delivery truck making its rounds. Normal morning traffic in a small town. Then she heard it, an engine slowing down behind her. Miranda turned and saw a dark sedan pulling to the curb. Her heart immediately kicked into a higher gear. But then she recognized the driver and the fear morphed into something more complicated. Ward Weaver. He lived in her building just down the hall. Nice guy, always friendly. He'd actually been one of the people who'd helped search for Ashley in those first frantic days after she disappeared, joining the volunteer groups that combed through wooded areas and abandoned buildings, putting up flyers, talking to the news crews. The passenger window rolled down. "Morning, Miranda," Ward called out cheerfully. "Heading to school?" "Yeah," Miranda replied, her voice tentative. "Bus should be here soon." "I'm driving right past the middle school on my way to work," Ward said. "Want a ride? Save you the bus trip?" Miranda hesitated. She knew Ward, had known him for years. He'd fixed their apartment's garbage disposal just last month, hadn't even charged them for it. He'd helped her mother carry groceries when she'd seen her struggling with bags. He'd been nothing but kind to everyone in the building. But there was also a voice in her head, sounding suspiciously like her mother's, reminding her about stranger danger and never getting in cars and being careful. "That's okay," Miranda said. "The bus is fine." Ward shrugged amicably. "Suit yourself, but if you change your mind, I'm here for another minute or two. My daughter forgot her lunch and I gotta run it to her school anyway." That made sense. Ward had a daughter. Miranda had seen her around the complex a few times. This was just a dad running errands before work. Nothing sinister about that. But still, something felt off. Maybe it was just the paranoia that had gripped Oregon City since Ashley's disappearance. Maybe it was the fact that this was the exact spot where Ashley had last been seen. Or maybe it was something deeper, some animal instinct that humans are born with but learn to ignore as they grow up. "I'm really okay," Miranda said again. "Thanks, though." Ward's smile didn't waver. "No problem. Stay safe out here, all right? A lot of weirdos in the world." The window rolled up and the sedan pulled away smoothly, merging back into the light morning traffic. Miranda watched it go, noticing for the first time that it was the same color and model as the car that witnesses had reported seeing near the bus stop the morning Ashley disappeared. Dark blue sedan, older model, tinted windows. But that was probably just coincidence. Oregon City was full of cars like that. Still, Miranda found herself pulling out the small canister of pepper spray her mother had insisted she carry after Ashley's disappearance. She held it in her pocket, her thumb on the trigger, and kept her eyes on the street. The bus arrived at 7:44 a.m. right on schedule. Miranda climbed aboard, showed her pass, and found a seat. As the bus pulled away from the stop, she looked back at the empty bench, at the spot where Ashley had stood 2 months ago, and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. She thought about that conversation they'd had, Ashley asking if she ever felt watched. Now Miranda understood. Now she felt it too. That prickling sensation on the back of her neck. That sense of being observed, studied, assessed. At school, choir practice was its usual chaos. 40 kids trying to harmonize on a medley of Beatles songs for the spring concert. Miranda threw herself into it, grateful for the distraction. But between songs, during water breaks, she caught herself looking at Ashley's empty chair in the alto section. No one had officially removed it yet. It sat there like a memorial, like they were all waiting for Ashley to walk through the door and reclaim it. After practice, Miranda went to her locker and found a note slipped through the vents. Her name was written on the outside in unfamiliar handwriting. She opened it carefully, her heart pounding. "You should be more careful walking alone, your friend wasn't." The paper fell from Miranda's hands like it was on fire. She looked around frantically, trying to see who might have put it there, who might be watching her reaction. But the hallway was crowded with students rushing to first period, dozens of faces. Any one of them could be responsible. She picked up the note with shaking hands and went straight to the principal's office. Mrs. Henderson listened gravely as Miranda explained, then immediately called the police detective who'd been assigned to Ashley's case. Detective Sarah Chen arrived within the hour. "Can you think of anyone who might want to scare you?" Detective Chen asked gently, sitting across from Miranda in the principal's conference room. Miranda shook her head. "I don't have enemies. I'm nobody special." "You were Ashley's friend," Detective Chen said. "Maybe someone thinks you know something, but I don't. I've told you everything. We weren't even that close anymore. We'd grown apart." Detective Chen studied her for a long moment. "Miranda, I want you to be very careful. I want you to vary your routine, different routes to school, different times if possible. Don't walk anywhere alone. And if you see or remember anything unusual, anything at all, you call me immediately." She handed Miranda her business card. Miranda took it with numb fingers, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. This wasn't just about Ashley anymore. This was about her too. That evening, Miranda's mother insisted on picking her up from school, and they drove home in tense silence. As they pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex, Miranda saw Ward Weaver getting out of his car, carrying grocery bags. He waved cheerfully at them. Miranda's mother waved back, then turned to her daughter. "Such a nice man. He's been so helpful since your father left." Miranda said nothing. She watched Ward walk to his apartment, watched him pause to help an elderly neighbor with her door, watched him smile and laugh and be perfectly, completely normal. And yet something in her gut twisted with fear. That night, as she lay in bed trying to sleep, Miranda thought about Ashley's question one more time. "Do you ever feel like someone's watching you?" "Yes, Ashley, I do now. I understand exactly what you meant, and I'm terrified." January 9th, 1997. Oregon City, Oregon. Detective Sarah Chen sat in her cramped office at the Oregon City Police Department, surrounded by file folders, crime scene photos, and maps covered in red circles and question marks. The Ashley Pond case had consumed her life for the past 8 weeks, and she was no closer to finding the girl than she'd been on day one. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago, but she drank it anyway, grimacing at the bitter taste. Outside her window, darkness had fallen over the city, streetlights casting orange pools of light on the wet pavement. Most of her colleagues had gone home hours ago, but Sarah couldn't leave. Not when a 12-year-old girl was out there somewhere, alive or dead. She didn't know which. The note that Miranda Gaddis had received that morning lay on Sarah's desk, sealed in an evidence bag. The lab had already processed it. No fingerprints except Miranda's generic notebook paper that could be purchased at any store. Handwriting that appeared deliberately disguised with block letters. A dead end, like everything else in this case. Sarah pulled up the case file on her computer, reviewing the timeline for what felt like the 1000th time. November 13th, 1996, 7:30 a.m. Ashley Pond leaves her apartment to walk to the bus stop at Lincoln and Malala Avenue. Her mother, Lorena Pond, is home but sleeping after working the night shift. 7:42 a.m. Multiple witnesses see Ashley waiting alone at the bus stop. She appears normal, not distressed. 7:45 a.m. The school bus arrives. Ashley is not there. The driver assumes she got a ride or stayed home sick. 9:15 a.m. The school calls Lorena Pond to report Ashley's absence. Lorena immediately calls 911, knowing her daughter would never skip school. From there, the case had exploded into a full-scale missing persons investigation. Search parties, media coverage, FBI involvement, hundreds of tips that led nowhere. And now, 8 weeks later, absolutely nothing. No body, no witnesses to an abduction, no ransom demand, no sightings. Ashley Pond had simply vanished in the 3 minutes between being seen at the bus stop and the bus's arrival. Sarah rubbed her eyes, fighting off exhaustion. She'd interviewed everyone: family members, friends, teachers, neighbors, random strangers who claimed to have information. She'd followed up on every tip, no matter how far-fetched. She'd searched wooded areas, abandoned buildings, drainage ditches. She'd run background checks on every registered sex offender within a 50-mile radius. And she kept coming back to the same uncomfortable conclusion. This was someone local, someone familiar, someone the community trusted. Stranger abductions were rare and usually sloppy. Witnesses, evidence, mistakes made in panic. But this had been smooth, professional almost. The perpetrator had taken Ashley in broad daylight from a residential street and left no trace. That required knowledge of the area, knowledge of Ashley's routine, and most importantly, a way to gain her trust quickly. Sarah pulled out her notes from the neighborhood canvas. She'd interviewed 43 residents of Ashley's apartment complex and the surrounding streets. Most were working-class families, single parents, elderly retirees, the kind of community where everyone knew everyone, where people looked out for each other's kids. One name kept appearing in her notes: Ward Francis Weaver III. Ward lived in Ashley's building, just 3 apartments down. 41 years old, construction worker, divorced with 1 daughter from his previous marriage. He'd been one of the most helpful people during the initial search, volunteering to distribute flyers, joining search parties, offering comfort to Ashley's distraught mother. Sarah had interviewed him twice. Both times he'd been cooperative, concerned, seemingly genuine in his desire to help find Ashley. He had an alibi for the morning of November 13th. said he was home sleeping after working a late shift. His daughter, who lived with him every other week, could confirm he was home when she left for school at 7:15 a.m. But something about Ward Weaver bothered Sarah, though she couldn't articulate what. Maybe it was the way he'd been almost too helpful, or the way he'd inserted himself into the investigation, always asking questions about what leads they were following, what evidence they'd found. Or maybe it was just cop instinct, that sixth sense that developed after years of dealing with liars and predators. She'd run his background check. Ward had a criminal record, assault charges from 15 years ago, a domestic violence complaint from his ex-wife that had been dropped. Nothing recent, nothing involving children. Not enough to get a search warrant, not enough to bring him in for formal questioning. But then there was his father. Sarah opened another file, this one marked confidential. Ward Francis Weaver II had been convicted in 1981 of murdering a couple in California. He was currently serving life in prison. The case had been brutal. The victims had been strangled and buried in Weaver II's backyard. He'd maintained his innocence for years before finally confessing. The son of a murderer doesn't automatically become a murderer himself. Sarah knew that. She'd seen plenty of kids from terrible backgrounds grow up to be good people. But she'd also seen the opposite, and the statistics on violent behavior running in families were troubling. Her phone rang, startling her out of her thoughts. She glanced at the caller ID, Miranda Gaddis's mother. "Detective Chen," Sarah answered. "It's Janet Gaddis." The woman's voice was tight with panic. "Miranda isn't home." Sarah sat up straight. "What do you mean she isn't home?" "She had choir practice after school, supposed to be done at 4:30. It's almost 8:00 and she's not answering her cell phone. I've called all her friends. No one's seen her." The cold feeling in Sarah's gut intensified. "When did you last speak to her?" "This morning before school. After what happened yesterday with that note, I told her to call me as soon as practice was over. She never called." Sarah was already grabbing her jacket, her keys. "I'm on my way. Call 911 and report her missing. Right now. Don't wait." She hung up and ran for her car, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. Not again. Not another 12-year-old girl vanishing from the same neighborhood. The drive to the middle school took 8 minutes. Sarah found the building dark and locked, the parking lot empty except for the custodian's truck. She banged on the door until the custodian, an elderly man named Frank, let her in. "Did you see any students here late today?" Sarah demanded. Frank nodded slowly. "Choir practice. They were done by 4:30 like always. I saw most of them leave." "Did you see Miranda Gaddis? Small girl, brown hair, green sweater?" "Yeah, I think so. Saw her in the hallway talking to someone around 4:45. Thought it was her parent picking her up." Sarah's heart sank. "Who was she talking to? Man or woman?" "Man, I think. Couldn't see clearly from where I was." They went out the side door together. Sarah ran to the side exit, pushed through the door into the cold night air. The parking lot on this side of the building was poorly lit, isolated from the main entrance. The perfect place to take someone without being seen. She pulled out her phone and called for backup, for search teams, for every available unit. Then she called the school principal and demanded access to security footage. There was one camera covering the side parking lot. The footage was grainy, the lighting poor, but Sarah could make out 2 figures. A small one, clearly Miranda, in her green sweater and backpack, and a larger one, an adult male, wearing a dark jacket and baseball cap. Sarah watched the footage 3 times trying to make out identifying features, but the man kept his face turned away from the camera, almost as if he knew where it was positioned. He walked Miranda to a dark sedan, the make and model impossible to determine in the poor lighting, and she got in voluntarily. No struggle, no force. She trusted him. Sarah's hands were shaking as she froze the frame on the clearest shot of the vehicle. Dark blue or black sedan, older model, possibly a Buick or Oldsmobile. The license plate was obscured by darkness and the camera angle. "God damn it," Sarah whispered. She pulled up Ward Weaver's DMV records on her phone. He owned a 1989 Oldsmobile Cutlass, dark blue. It was 9:30 p.m. when Sarah and 4 other officers converged on Ward Weaver's apartment. They had no warrant, only reasonable suspicion and a missing child. Sarah knocked hard on the door, identifying herself as police. Ward opened the door after a moment, looking surprised but not particularly alarmed. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, holding a beer. Behind him, Sarah could see his living room, neat, normal, a baseball game playing on the television. "Detective Chen," Ward said with a friendly smile. "What can I do for you?" "Miranda Gaddis is missing," Sarah said bluntly, watching his face for any reaction. "She was last seen getting into a dark blue sedan around 4:45 this afternoon. You drive a dark blue sedan, don't you, Ward?" Ward's expression shifted to one of concern. "Oh my God, Miranda? That's terrible. Yes, I drive a blue Cutlass, but I've been home all evening. I haven't seen her. Mind if we take a look at your car?" "Not at all." Ward grabbed his keys from a hook by the door and led them down to the parking lot. His Oldsmobile was parked in its usual spot, covered in rainwater from the afternoon shower. Sarah pulled on latex gloves and opened the passenger door. The interior was clean. Too clean. The car smelled strongly of cleaning products, Armor All and air freshener. The floor mats looked freshly vacuumed. "You clean your car today, Ward?" Sarah asked. "Yesterday, actually," Ward replied easily. "Spilled coffee all over the passenger side. Made a real mess." Sarah checked the trunk. Also spotless. No sign of Miranda, no sign of Ashley, no sign of anything suspicious. But that smell. That chemical smell of someone trying to erase evidence. "Where were you between 4:00 and 5:00 p.m. today?" Sarah asked. "Here, home. I got off work at 3:30, stopped at the grocery store, came home. I've got the receipt if you need it." "Any witnesses who can confirm you were home?" Ward shrugged. "My daughter's with her mother this week, so no. But I'm sure someone in the building saw me come in. It was perfect. Too perfect. An alibi that couldn't be confirmed or denied. A clean car with a convenient explanation. A helpful demeanor that never quite cracked." Sarah wanted to arrest him right then. Wanted to tear apart his apartment, his car, his entire life. But she had nothing. No probable cause. No evidence. Nothing but gut instinct and circumstantial details. "If you think of anything that might help us find Miranda, you call me," Sarah said, handing him her card even though she'd already given him one months ago. "Of course," Ward said solemnly. "I hope you find her. 2 girls from the same neighborhood. That's just terrible. What kind of monster would do something like that?" Sarah held his gaze for a long moment, searching for something. Guilt, fear, satisfaction. But Ward Weaver's face showed only concern and sympathy. Either he was innocent, or he was the best actor she'd ever encountered. As Sarah drove away, she glanced in her rearview mirror. Ward stood in the parking lot watching her leave, his figure illuminated by the streetlight. And for just a moment, so brief she might have imagined it, she thought she saw him smile. February 2006. Salem, Oregon. 10 years had passed since the disappearances that had torn Oregon City apart. 10 years of searches that found nothing. Investigations that went cold. Families that never stopped hoping, and a community that learned to live with unanswered questions. Detective Sarah Chen, now Lieutenant Chen, still kept the files on her desk. Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. 2 12-year-old girls who had vanished 8 weeks apart in the winter of 1996 to 97. 2 cases that had defined her career and haunted her sleep for a decade. The official investigation had remained open but inactive. Ward Weaver had been questioned repeatedly over the years, his property searched twice with warrants obtained through intense legal wrangling. But nothing had ever been found. No bodies, no evidence, no confession. He'd moved to a house in a different part of Oregon City in 1998, started a new construction business, became a model citizen who volunteered at community events and coached Little League. And Sarah had watched him. For 10 years, she'd watched him, waiting for him to slip up, to make a mistake, to show his hand. But Ward Weaver was either innocent or extraordinarily careful. The families had fractured under the weight of not knowing. Lorena Pond had moved to California in 2002, unable to bear living in the town where her daughter had disappeared. She called Sarah every few months, her voice growing more hollow each time, asking if there was any news. There never was. Miranda's mother, Janet Gaddis, had stayed in Oregon City, maintaining her daughter's room exactly as it had been, celebrating birthdays for a child who would now be 22 years old. She'd organized annual vigils, kept the cases in the local media, and slowly descended into a depression that medication could barely touch. Sarah had moved up in the department, taken on other cases, solved dozens of crimes, but she'd never stopped thinking about those two girls, never stopped believing that someone knew what had happened, never stopped suspecting Ward Weaver. And then, on a cold February evening, her phone rang with a call that would change everything. Lieutenant Chen, this is Deputy Marcus Webb from the Marion County Sheriff's Office. We've got a situation here in Salem that you're going to want to see. The Quick Stop convenience store sat on the outskirts of Salem, about 15 miles from Oregon City. It was the kind of place that catered to truckers and late-night travelers, harsh fluorescent lighting, rows of junk food and energy drinks, a tired-looking clerk behind bulletproof glass. That clerk's name was Ryan Foster, and he was 23 years old. He'd been working at the Quick Stop for 2 years, saving money for college, dealing with the usual parade of customers. Some friendly, some weird, most just passing through. But on February 14, 2006, Ryan Foster saw something that made him break protocol and call the police. When Sarah arrived at the scene, she found the parking lot cordoned off with police tape, 3 patrol cars with lights flashing, and a dark blue sedan being photographed by forensic technicians. Her pulse quickened as she recognized the make and model, an older Oldsmobile, similar to the one Ward Weaver had owned 10 years ago. Deputy Webb met her at the tape line. He was young, probably late 20s, with the intense expression of someone who'd just encountered something way above his pay grade. "Thanks for coming so fast," Webb said. The clerk, Ryan Foster, he recognized one of our customers from those missing person posters. "You know the ones that have been up around here for years? The 2 girls from Oregon City." Sarah's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "Which girl?" "Ashley Pond. He's pretty sure it was her. She's obviously older now, early 20s, but he said the resemblance was striking. He grew up in Oregon City, remembered seeing her face everywhere when he was a kid." "Where is she now?" Webb gestured toward the patrol cars. "In the back of Unit 3 with Officer Martinez. The man she was with. He's in Unit 2. We've separated them for questioning." Sarah walked toward Unit 3, her mind racing through a decade of dead ends and sleepless nights. The rear door opened and she saw a young woman sitting inside, wrapped in a blanket despite the car's heater running full blast. She was thin, too thin, with long blonde hair that looked like it had been cut with scissors rather than by a professional. Her clothes were worn and didn't quite fit. But her face. Sarah had memorized that face from a school photo taken in 1996, had studied it in dreams and nightmares, and even with 10 years of aging, even with the gauntness and the trauma evident in every line of her expression, Sarah knew. "Ashley," she said softly. The young woman looked up, and her eyes, those same eyes from the photograph, filled with tears. She nodded slowly, and then the dam broke. She collapsed forward, sobbing with a raw, desperate sound that Sarah had never heard from another human being. Sarah climbed into the car and held her. This girl who'd been missing for a decade and felt her own tears streaming down her face. "It's okay," Sarah whispered. "You're safe now. You're safe." "Miranda," Ashley choked out between sobs. "You have to find Miranda. She's still there. She's still with him. She's..." The interview room at the Marion County Sheriff's Office was small and sterile. White walls, a metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and a camera in the corner recording everything. Sarah sat across from Ashley Pond, who was now wrapped in a proper coat and had been given water and food, though she'd barely touched either. A victim advocate sat beside Ashley, and a doctor was on standby, but Ashley had refused medical treatment until she could tell her story, until she could make them understand about Miranda. "Take your time," Sarah said gently. Start wherever you feel comfortable. Ashley's hands shook as she wrapped them around a cup of hot chocolate. She looked younger than 22 or maybe older. It was hard to tell. Trauma aged people in strange ways. It was Ward Weaver, Ashley said, her voice barely above a whisper. The morning I disappeared, he was in his car at the bus stop. He said my mom had called him to give me a ride because of the rain. I didn't believe him at first, but then... She paused, taking a shaky breath. He said he had something to show me. Something about Miranda. He said she'd told him a secret about me and he wanted to know if it was true. I was stupid. I was 12 and stupid, and I got in the car to talk to him for just a minute. Just a minute. Sarah's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice calm. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. He drove me to his house instead of school. Took me inside. There was this room. In the basement. He'd built it hidden behind a false wall. Soundproofed. The door locked from the outside. Ashley's breathing became rapid, panicky. The advocate placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. He kept me there, Ashley continued, tears streaming down her face. For 2 months, just me. He would come down with food, with threats, with things I don't want to talk about. He said if I screamed, if I tried to escape, he would kill my mother. He showed me pictures of her, of where she worked, of her daily routine. I believed him. Sarah felt sick. Miranda. When did Miranda arrive? January, maybe 2 months after me. She was in the room when I woke up one morning. She was terrified, confused. Ward told her the same things he'd told me, that we were his now, that no one was looking for us anymore, that our families had moved on. That wasn't true, Sarah said firmly. We never stopped looking. Your mothers never gave up. Ashley's face crumpled. I wanted to believe that, but after years of being down there, of no one finding us, it was hard to hope. How did you escape? How are you here now? Ashley wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Ward got careless. After 10 years, he thought he'd won. He started taking me places with him. Grocery store, gas stations. Because I was so broken down, he didn't think I'd try anything. He kept Miranda at the house, told me if I said anything, she'd die, but today I saw that clerk, Ryan, and I remembered him from when we were kids. And I thought maybe, just maybe, he would remember me too. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. I wrote a note, slipped it to him with the money when Ward sent me in to pay for gas. It said, I'm Ashley Pond. Call police. Miranda Gaddis still captive. Sarah took the note with gloved hands, reading Ryan Foster's shaky handwriting on the back where he'd added the license plate number of Ward's car before calling 911. You were so brave, Sarah said. You saved yourself and Miranda. Is she okay? Ashley asked desperately. Did you find her? Is she alive? Sarah stood up. We have teams heading to Ward's house right now. We're going to bring her home. The house at 6925 South Beaver Creek Road in Oregon City was unremarkable. A 2-story structure with a detached garage, a yard that needed mowing, and neighbors on either side who would later tell reporters they'd never suspected anything unusual. Ward Weaver had lived there since 1998, had hosted barbecues, had helped elderly neighbors with their groceries, had been, by all accounts, a perfectly normal member of the community. The SWAT team breached the door at 10:47 p.m. Sarah was right behind them, her service weapon drawn, her heart in her throat. The house was empty. Ward was still in custody in Salem, but that didn't make it any less terrifying to search. They found the basement door hidden behind a bookshelf in Ward's bedroom. It took them 20 minutes to figure out how to open it. A complex series of locks and latches designed to keep people in, not out. The stairs descended into darkness. Sarah went down first, calling out, Miranda? Miranda Gaddis? This is the police. We're here to help you. Silence. Then from somewhere in the darkness, a voice. Weak, uncertain, scared. Ashley. Sarah's flashlight beam caught her, huddled in the corner of a small concrete room chained to a wall by one ankle. Miranda Gaddis. 22 years old, alive. "We've got her," Sarah radioed up. "We need medical down here now." As EMTs rushed down the stairs, as bolt cutters freed Miranda from her chains, as the young woman was carried up into the cold February night, Sarah stood in that underground prison and felt the weight of 10 years crash over her. 2 girls, a decade of their lives stolen, by a man who had smiled and helped and played the perfect neighbor while keeping them locked in hell beneath his feet. Ward Francis Weaver III was arrested and charged with 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of sexual assault, and multiple other crimes. His trial would be swift, the evidence overwhelming. But for Sarah, standing in that basement, none of that mattered yet. All that mattered was that Ashley and Miranda were alive, broken, traumatized, facing years of recovery and healing, but alive. And that would have to be enough. March 2006, Oregon City, Oregon. The media descended on Oregon City like a swarm of locusts. News vans lined the streets, reporters shouted questions at anyone who would listen, and helicopters circled overhead capturing aerial footage of Ward Weaver's house, now a crime scene wrapped in yellow tape and surrounded by forensic teams. The story had everything the 24-hour news cycle craved: innocent victims, a decade-long mystery solved, and a monster hiding in plain sight. CNN ran special reports. Dateline scheduled an episode. People magazine put Ashley and Miranda's school photos side by side on their cover with the headline, "10 Years in Hell, the Oregon City Miracle." But for the 2 young women at the center of the storm, there was nothing miraculous about their survival. Ashley Pond sat in a private room at Oregon Health and Science University Hospital in Portland, 25 miles from the town where she'd been taken. The doctors had insisted on keeping her for observation. Severe malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies, untreated infections, and psychological trauma that would require years of therapy to unpack. Her mother, Lorena, hadn't left her side for 3 days. She sat in a chair beside Ashley's bed, holding her daughter's hand, crying and laughing and apologizing over and over for things that weren't her fault. "I should have driven you to school that morning," Lorena said for the 100th time. "I should have been awake, I should have—" "Mom, stop," Ashley interrupted gently. "You didn't do this. He did." But guilt wasn't rational. Ashley understood that. She carried her own guilt, for getting in Ward's car that morning, for not fighting harder, for surviving when part of her had wanted to give up so many times over the years. Dr. Patricia Hammond, the psychologist assigned to Ashley's care, had explained that these feelings were normal, that trauma rewired the brain in strange ways, that healing would be a long, non-linear process with good days and bad days and days where just getting out of bed felt impossible. "You're going to want to tell your story," Dr. Hammond had said during their first session. "Everyone's going to want to hear it. The police, the prosecutors, the media, your family, and you'll need to tell parts of it for the legal case. But remember, you don't owe anyone the details. You survived. That's what matters. Everything else is yours to share or keep private as you choose." Ashley appreciated that, because the details were horrific. The things Ward had done over 10 years in that basement room, the psychological games he'd played, telling them their families had forgotten them, that the world had moved on, that they were his property now and always would be. She and Miranda had developed a language of taps and whispers through the concrete wall that separated their cells. They'd kept each other sane, reminded each other of who they'd been before, made plans for escape that never materialized because Ward was always one step ahead, until he wasn't. Until 10 years of captivity had made him overconfident, until he'd started believing his own lies about having broken them completely. Ashley's phone, a new one provided by Victim Services, buzzed with a text message. It was from Miranda, who was in a different hospital across town for her own treatment and protection. "How are you holding up? The lawyers want to meet tomorrow. I'm terrified." Ashley typed back slowly, still getting used to smartphones and technology that had advanced dramatically while she'd been underground. "Me too. We'll do it together, like everything else." 3 dots appeared as Miranda typed, then, "Thank you for saving us. I never got to say that properly." Ashley's eyes filled with tears. You saved me too. Every single day. Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood in the conference room at the Oregon City Police Department, facing a wall covered in evidence photos, timelines, and witness statements. The district attorney, Marcus Rivera, sat at the head of the table with his prosecution team, 3 attorneys who specialized in kidnapping and sexual assault cases. Let's be clear about what we're building here, Rivera said, his voice grave. This is going to be one of the highest profile cases Oregon has seen in decades. The defense is going to attack from every angle. We need our case to be airtight. Sarah nodded. She'd been working around the clock since Miranda's rescue, compiling evidence, interviewing witnesses, documenting every detail of the decade-long investigation. Ward Weaver's public defender has already filed motions to suppress evidence from the basement search, Rivera continued. They're arguing the warrant was obtained under duress and the search was overly broad. That's bullshit, Sarah said sharply. We had probable cause from Ashley's testimony and the note she passed to the clerk. Miranda was in immediate danger. I agree, but we need to be prepared for every technicality. What do we have on Weaver's background? Sarah pulled out a thick file. Ward Francis Weaver, 3, born 1955. His father, Ward Weaver, 2, is currently serving life in California for double murder, strangled a couple and buried them in his backyard in 1981. Ward III was convicted of assault in 1982, served 3 years. Domestic violence complaint from his ex-wife in 1989, though she dropped the charges. The son of a murderer who becomes a kidnapper, Rivera mused. The defense is going to argue that's prejudicial. It's also relevant, Sarah countered. It establishes a pattern of violence and deception. Weaver learned from his father how to hide crimes, how to manipulate people, how to present a normal face while doing monstrous things. Rivera nodded slowly. Okay, what about the crime scene itself? Sarah clicked through photos on her laptop, projecting them onto the wall. The hidden basement, the 2 concrete cells separated by a thick wall, the chains, the sparse furnishings, a mattress, a bucket, a single light bulb controlled from outside. Forensics found DNA evidence from both victims throughout the space, Sarah explained. Hair, blood, skin cells. We also found journals that Weaver kept, documenting his activities with Ashley and Miranda over the years. The room fell silent. Even the hardened prosecutors looked sick. Those journals are going to be key evidence, Rivera said quietly. But they're also going to be incredibly difficult for the victims to hear about in court. We need to prepare them carefully. They're strong, Sarah said. Stronger than anyone should have to be. But yes, the trial is going to be traumatic for them. What about Weaver's statement? One of the junior prosecutors asked. Sarah's expression darkened. He's not talking, lawyered up immediately. His public defender has advised complete silence. But we don't need his confession. We have the victim's testimony, the physical evidence, the journals, and the crime scene itself. Rivera leaned back in his chair. The defense is going to argue that Ashley and Miranda had Stockholm Syndrome, that they stayed with Weaver voluntarily in recent years, that the relationship became consensual. Sarah's fist hit the table hard enough to make everyone jump. They were chained in a basement. Miranda was literally shackled to a wall when we found her. I know, Rivera said calmly. I know, but we need to anticipate every disgusting argument the defense might make. That's how we win. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay professional. The medical evidence will counter that. Both women show signs of long-term physical abuse, malnutrition, and psychological trauma consistent with prolonged captivity. There were no windows, no clocks, no contact with the outside world except through Weaver. That's not a relationship, that's imprisonment. Good, that's exactly what we'll argue. Rivera closed his folder. Trial set for August. That gives us 5 months to build an unbreakable case. I want everything documented, every witness prepped, every piece of evidence cataloged and ready to present. This monster is going to spend the rest of his life in prison. April 2006, Portland, Oregon. Ashley sat across from Dr. Hammond in the therapist's office. A warm, comfortable space with soft lighting and furniture that didn't feel clinical. She'd been coming twice a week for the past 2 months, slowly unpacking a decade of trauma, one painful memory at a time. The prosecutor called, Ashley said, staring at her hands. They want me to testify in detail about what Ward did. Every assault, every threat, everything. Doctor? Hammond nodded sympathetically. How does that make you feel? Sick, angry, scared. Ashley looked up, her eyes wet. I want him to pay for what he did. I want everyone to know what kind of monster he is. But I don't want to stand in a courtroom and relive all of it while he sits there watching me. That's a completely understandable fear. Miranda is going to testify too. We talked about it, about how we can support each other through the trial, but Dr. Hammond, I'm not sure I'm strong enough for this. The therapist leaned forward slightly. Ashley, you survived 10 years of unimaginable horror. You found a way to pass a note to a stranger, risking everything to save yourself and Miranda. You are stronger than you realize. But what if I break down on the stand? What if I can't get the words out? Then you break down and that's okay. Your emotions, your tears, your fear, that's all evidence too. It shows the jury exactly what Ward Weaver did to you. There's no wrong way to be a victim. Ashley nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. I keep having these nightmares. That the trial goes wrong, that he's found not guilty, that he gets out and comes after us again. Given the evidence against him, the likelihood of acquittal is extremely low, but your fear is valid. He had complete control over you for 10 years. It's going to take time for your brain to truly understand that he has no power over you anymore. Sometimes I still hear his voice, Ashley whispered, when I'm trying to fall asleep, telling me I'm worthless, that no one wanted to find me, that I deserved what happened. That's his voice, not yours. And it's a lie. Your mother never stopped searching. Detective Chen never gave up. And you always deserved to be free and safe and loved. Ashley pulled a tissue from the box on the table. When does it get easier? When do I start feeling normal again? Dr. Hammond's expression was gentle but honest. There's no timeline for healing, Ashley. You're not going to wake up one day and suddenly feel like the 12-year-old girl you were before this happened. Because you're not that girl anymore. You're a 22-year-old woman who survived something horrible. The goal isn't to get back to who you were. It's to discover who you are now. Who am I now? That's what we're going to figure out together. One day at a time. May 2006. Oregon State Penitentiary, Salem, Oregon. Ward Francis Weaver III sat in a private consultation room, wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, facing his public defender, a middle-aged woman named Catherine Torres who'd been assigned to his case by the court. The prosecution's case is very strong, Catherine said bluntly. They have physical evidence, victim testimony, your journals, and the crime scene itself. A jury is going to convict you. Ward stared at her with flat, emotionless eyes. So what do you suggest? I suggest you take the plea deal the DA is offering. Life in prison without possibility of parole. In exchange, you spare Ashley and Miranda from having to testify in graphic detail about a decade of abuse. And if I don't, then we go to trial. And you'll still be convicted. But the trial will be a media circus that traumatizes 2 young women all over again. And depending on how the jury feels after hearing the details, they might push for the death penalty as an added charge. Ward leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing at his lips. You know what's funny? I actually thought I'd gotten away with it. 10 years. A decade of being so careful, so smart. And then I got lazy. Took Ashley to a gas station because I wanted a soda. Catherine's expression remained neutral, though Ward's casual tone made her skin crawl. That's not a defense. I'm not offering a defense, I'm just saying it's ironic. Ward, listen to me carefully. The only choice you have now is whether you make this harder on your victims than it needs to be. Take the plea. Spare them the trial. It's the only decent thing you can do at this point. Ward laughed, a cold, bitter sound. Decent. That's rich. Everyone thinks they know what happened in that basement. But they don't. They'll never understand. Then help me understand. Ward's eyes met hers, and for a moment Catherine saw something that made her blood run cold. Not remorse, not shame, but a kind of pride. I gave them purpose, Ward said quietly. They were nothing before me. Just two kids going nowhere from broken homes with mothers who barely noticed them. I gave them structure. I gave them meaning. You gave them hell. I gave them me, Ward corrected. And for 10 years I was their entire world. That's power, counselor. That's what people don't understand. It's not about the physical acts. It's about owning someone completely. Mind, body, and soul. Catherine closed her file folder with more force than necessary. I'll relay the plea offer to the court. But Ward, I hope you rot in that cell for the rest of your miserable life. She stood to leave, but Ward's voice stopped her. They'll never really be free, you know. Ashley and Miranda. I'll always be in their heads. Every relationship they try to have, every moment of happiness they attempt, I'll be there. Because I didn't just take 10 years from them. I took their ability to trust, to love, to feel safe. That's forever. Catherine looked back at him, her hand on the door. You're wrong. They're stronger than you. They survived you. And they're going to build lives that prove every single thing you believe is a lie. She walked out, leaving Ward Weaver alone in his cell, smiling to himself in the shadows. August 2006, Clackamas County Courthouse, Oregon City, Oregon. Ward Francis Weaver III stood before Judge Patricia Morrison in a packed courtroom, his hands cuffed in front of him, his orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the dark suits of the prosecution team. The media hadn't been allowed inside for the plea hearing, but dozens of reporters waited outside ready to broadcast the outcome to the world. Ashley and Miranda sat in the front row with their mothers, victim advocates on either side of them. Sarah Chen sat behind them, having requested the day off from duty to be present for this moment. Judge Morrison reviewed the plea agreement in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then she looked up, her expression severe. Mr. Weaver, you are pleading guilty to 2 counts of kidnapping in the first degree, 2 counts of rape in the first degree, and multiple counts of assault. Do you understand that by accepting this plea, you will be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole? Yes, Your Honor, Ward said, his voice steady and emotionless. Do you understand that you are waiving your right to a trial by jury? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Morrison turned to Ashley and Miranda. Ms. Pond, Ms. Gaddis, this plea agreement means you will not have to testify in open court. However, if you wish to make victim impact statements before sentencing, you have that right. Ashley and Miranda exchanged glances. They discussed this moment for weeks, preparing themselves for it. Miranda nodded first, then Ashley. They both stood. Ashley approached the microphone, her hands trembling. Her mother reached out and squeezed her hand once before letting go. I was 12 years old when Ward Weaver took everything from me, Ashley began, her voice small but growing stronger. He took my childhood, my innocence, my sense of safety. He took 10 years of my life that I can never get back. Birthdays, graduations, first dates, college, all gone. He kept me in darkness, in fear, in pain. He told me every day that I was worthless, that no one was looking for me, that I belonged to him. Her voice cracked, but she pushed forward. But he was wrong. People were looking for me. My mother never stopped. Detective Chen never gave up. And I never stopped being a person even when he tried to make me believe I was nothing. Ashley looked directly at Ward for the first time. You don't own me. You never did. I'm standing here today, free, because you failed. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that you didn't break me. She stepped back, and Miranda took her place at the microphone. Her voice was steadier, harder. I was 12 too. And for 10 years I survived in that basement by holding on to the memory of who I was before you. You tried to erase us, but Ashley and I kept each other alive. We reminded each other of sunshine, of music, of laughter, things you couldn't touch. You're going to die in prison, Ward. Alone. Forgotten. while Ashley and I are going to live. Really live. And that's your punishment. Judge Morrison wiped her eyes before speaking. Ward Francis Weaver III, I hereby sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. May you spend every remaining day of your life reflecting on the magnitude of your crimes. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. November 2016, Portland, Oregon. 10 years after their rescue, Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis stood together on a stage at a survivors advocacy conference, facing an audience of 200 people. They were both 32 now, had both completed college, both built careers helping other victims of violent crimes. Ashley worked as a counselor for a nonprofit that supported survivors of long-term captivity. Miranda had become a victims' rights attorney, fighting for legislative changes to protect vulnerable people. They'd both been through years of therapy, had both struggled with PTSD and depression and anger. They'd both had relationships that failed because trust was hard when someone had stolen your ability to feel safe. But they'd also both found ways to heal, to grow, to reclaim their lives. People ask us all the time how we survived, Ashley said into the microphone. They want some inspirational answer about inner strength or faith or determination, and those things mattered. But the real answer is simpler and more complicated. We survived because we had each other. Miranda nodded. In that basement, we couldn't see each other. We couldn't touch, but we could hear each other through the wall. We developed a language of taps. 1 tap for I'm here, 2 taps for stay strong, 3 taps for I love you. That connection, that reminder that we weren't alone, that's what kept us human. Recovery isn't linear, Ashley continued. There are still days when I wake up and feel like I'm back in that room. Still moments when I hear his voice in my head. But those moments are becoming less frequent. And I've learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means integrating what happened into who you are now, and choosing to move forward anyway. The audience applauded as Ashley and Miranda stepped down from the stage. Hand in hand, 2 survivors who'd turned their worst nightmare into a mission to help others. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, now retired, watched from the back of the room with tears in her eyes. She'd never stopped following their journey, never stopped feeling proud of the strength they'd shown. Later, over coffee, the 3 women sat together, no longer just detective and victims, but friends bound by shared history. Ward died in prison last month, Sarah said quietly. Heart attack. They found him in his cell. Ashley and Miranda exchanged glances. Neither felt joy at the news, but neither felt grief either. Good, Miranda said simply. He can't hurt anyone else now. Ashley raised her coffee cup. To survival, to healing, to proving that darkness doesn't win. They clinked cups, 3 women who'd fought their own battles against evil and emerged scarred but unbroken. Outside, the Portland rain fell softly. Not the cold, relentless rain of that November morning in 1996, but a gentle cleansing that washed the streets clean and made everything feel new. And somewhere in that rain-washed city, 2 women who'd once been stolen girls walked free.